Hey there, it's Olivia-Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today we're here to do a read it backwards of The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater. So before we get started, if you don't know what a read it backwards is, it's a series on my channel where I reread my favourite series, but I read them backwards, starting from the last book in the series to the first book, and along the way I'm looking for things like foreshadowing, I'm looking for things like character development or any other commentary I have on my favourite series. Because of this, it means that each video needs to come with a certain warning because it includes
spoilers.
So we're going to start with The Raven King. This is the fourth and final book in the Raven cycle. I read this one about 3 to 4 years ago now, and I absolutely love this series. It's one of my ultimate favourites. I'm the biggest fangirl, merch all over my house. It's like the Raven cycle exploded in here, and I am very much looking forward to rereading this series for the first time. I remember reading this one and knowing that Opal was out and that there was going to be a sequel series, so I was not as disappointed by the ending as some other people were, but that said, there were things that disappointed me, and I'll be getting into it when I read this one backwards. I think I gave this one 5 stars. I gave every book in this series 5 stars, but I have a feeling this one might become a 4 stars. Let's find out. Everybody strap in because I read 50 pages. I have so much to say that I know this video is going to be a long one. So first of all, I did not remember the prologue of this book. I actually thought the prologue of this book was what chapter 1 is, because let's face it, chapter 1 is a second prologue where they do the tarot card reading, the life tarot card reading, definitely a second prologue. But the first prologue is about Gansey, and I'm starting to think that every significant character gets a prologue. The first one is Blue's, I think, the second one is definitely Ronan's, and maybe the third one is Adam's if I'm remembering correctly. If that's the case, then they all do get their own prologue. And in this prologue it makes it explicitly clear that Gansey knew all along that he was the one who was going to die at the end. I love how all the characters in this novel are going around pretending that they're protecting Gansey from the truth, that he's likely going to die in this book. But Gansey is smart. Of course he's smart. Of course he's figured it out himself as well. Who are these characters kidding? Maggie Stiefvater kind of used the prologue to hype his death, and in the beginning it's all like, Gansey's gonna die. Yo, we all knew Gansey was not gonna die at the end of this series. I have to say that this book, or this series really, is Maggie Stiefvater's writing at its peak. I do feel like in Cool Down the Hawk it goes too far in the purple writing for my liking, and then in Shiver there's none of this writing, and then in this one the analogies are just so perfect. When she explains like Blue's emotions like a roller coaster ride that never actually got to be the ride that it was supposed to be, I was like, oh, that comparison is just so on point, and the repetitions are so on point. And I know I say peak of Maggie Stiefvater's writing as if I've read all of her books. I have not. I've literally only read the books I recently just mentioned in that comment, but still, it's the peak, okay? This is Stiefvater at her finest. It warmed my heart when Kala and Maura and the gang, or the Foxway gang I should say, are doing the tarot card reading, and they mention that they feel like they're missing Adam and they feel like they're missing Blue. And even though they're children, I just love seeing the adult-child dynamic in this one and how involved the adults are, even though it's a young adult novel, but also just how much they see them as equals in terms of the psychic level and kind of wish that they could have been there as well. Then there's Artemis, who is Blue's father, speaking for Caveswater during the tarot card reading. I have to admit though, like, his character is so underutilized in this book. I love this series, but I will say that I feel like his character was underutilized. Why was he even there? What was the point of him? I was frustrated, but it was nice to see him speak for Caveswater in this one, just because we know he's going to become a tree, so like he's speaking for the trees. Full circle. We get a moment where we get to see Adam and Gansey at the school, and I just love Adam and Gansey's dynamic because we get to see all of the different kind of friendship dynamics throughout this whole series, but Adam and Gansey is just so sweet because Gansey is definitely like putting on all the faces that he needs to for certain things, and Adam is quietly supporting him in whatever he needs in very subtle ways, and it's all unspoken. And I definitely think I have that relationship with my best friend as well. Like, we don't have to speak to know what the other person needs in small ways, and you're always looking out for each other, and it's just so lovely how this book captures this friendship dynamic very well in Gansey and Adam's relationship here. And also in this conversation that they're having, Ronan isn't even there, but Adam is thinking like, oh, if Ronan was here, this is what he would say. Adam's got it bad and he doesn't even know it. This reading is going to be very Adam-centric. I can't do it any other way. I'm sorry, that's just how I am. I'm Adam fangirl, so it just had to be that way. I also want to say that when I first read this book, I was not a fan of the Adam Ronan ship. I wasn't here for it, and that's because I really like Adam. Like, I'm a fan of Adam above all else in this series, so I always wanted Adam to be happy, and up until the moment where Adam and Ronan literally become a thing in this book, it still seems like Adam would be happiest with Blue. So I realised that as soon as Adam and Ronan became an official thing, I was 100% behind it. I was 100% shipping that couple. But all the way leading up to it, I was like, no, 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 because Adam hadn't made it explicitly clear that that was going to be what made him happy, and I just wanted Adam to be happy. So I think that is the reason why I can justify not having shipped it immediately, but now I just ship it wholeheartedly, so it makes up for it. Also, another thing, when Gansey was hanging out with other people and Adam was just there tagging along, it was nice to see Adam so secure in his friendship with Gansey and so secure in his friendships now, just because that was a point of doubt for him when he was first joining the group a bit later. Then we have a moment where something happens in Caveswater and Adam's like, oh, I know what Ronan's doing. And we just have to go back to the fact that in the first book, when Adam tied himself to Caveswater, Adam was literally already choosing to tie himself to Ronan in an indirect way that he didn't know at the time, and we love to see that kind of foreshadowing. But then we get back to Ronan being in the barns and doing his dreaming, and I just love the way that Ronan talks about home as a place where time doesn't matter, as a place of peace and safety and calm. And I love home generally. I love the concept of home, wherever that home may be, if it's more than one place, and I love that feeling, and I can definitely relate to it in some of the places that I call home. So it was beautiful to see that captured in words. But also, when Ronan was talking about home, he mentioned the fact that it's also home when he's there with Adam and they're dreaming / scrying together, and I was like, why is my ship the cutest thing? I also love the way that they're all just so focused on making sure that Gansey survives in their own way. Adam's trying to puzzle this out in his mind, and Ronan is doing his best to try and dream something. And it's just, you can see their love and their friendship for Gansey so clearly in this book, and I really like seeing that. There's also a line that was like, dreamers are classified as weapons. Call down the hawk, is that you? So we start to see Blue acting out at the school because she is struggling with a lot. Her father is back. Somebody that she loves has died. There's definitely a lot of emotional turmoil for anyone, and I like that we can see that Blue is acting out because of it, but also Blue knows that she's acting out because of it. One thing I admire about Blue is her honesty to herself and to others, and I have to admit that Blue is not one of my favourite characters. I think she's okay, but she's probably the one I like the least out of the group. But I still really like that value in her, and I like seeing her revise her biases. We've got a lot of unlearning going on in the friendship dynamic. Blue realising that not all Raven boys are the despicable people that she thinks they are, but also Gansey and the rest of them learning that they need to talk to people who are of a lower class to them in a respectable way, and how to do that, so they're both unlearning their biases. I appreciate seeing that. Hold that thought, I'm coming back to it later. But also, I love that moment in the car when they get in and Blue's like, I'm suspended. And you can see like Ronan cheering her on, Gansey being disapproving, Adam just asking questions to know things. And it just captures their found family dynamics so well. They've got a goal, they've got a problem that they're solving, but Maggie still slows down the story to give those pure friendship moments that encapsulate all of their personalities so well. We also have a scene with Noah and Blue where Noah shows Blue his real form, and I forgot that Noah can read memories and minds. I forgot that element. I see it a lot in the fanfic, but I didn't realise it was canon to the official book, so it's nice to know that. But also, from the moment where Noah showed himself as who he really is, I was like, he's not coming out of this book alive. And I think the end of the chapter makes it explicit to know that Noah's not supposed to be coming out of this book alive. And as soon as that was made clear, like, I feel like that was one of the moments where the foreshadowing was just too intense. Maggie does a very good job of doing like sly foreshadowing, but that was so intense that I A, knew that Noah was not going to survive this novel, B, guessed it was either going to be because the wish that they want to get from Glendower is going to go to Gansey and he's going to live and Noah's going to be gone, or Noah was going to sacrifice himself for Gansey. Those were my two predictions based on that single chapter within the first 50 pages, and one of those predictions was correct. So I think the foreshadowing was just a bit too obvious, a bit too intense here. Then we get Gwen Lillian, because Gwen Lillian is involved in this discussion with Noah and Blue, and she bothers me so much because she is such an underutilized character. She speaks in riddles. I always find riddles very interesting, but I feel like there was so much more that could have happened with her character than what happens in the novel. I'm not sure what I wanted to have happened, but just something to make her more significant. Like Artemis, she just felt very extra and not needed in the end, and I was like, wow, more could have been done there. I have to admit, I read these books back to back, so I wasn't sure where everything was in this book. For example, Adam turns in the car seat because he's half deaf, and I was like, oh, so he's already been made half deaf, he probably doesn't live with his parents anymore. These are all things that I forget which book it happened in, and therefore I'm discovering that again with the read it backwards. Blue is staring at Gansey in the car because she's attracted to him, and Adam catches her at it, and then following that, Adam is also trying to like do a non-verbal friendship thing with Blue, and I feel like Blue should have known at this moment that of course Adam knows and has figured everything out. Once again, we are talking about the smart Raven boys, okay? Adam knows what's up. He's smart enough to figure things out. So I feel like the fact that they're all trying to keep secrets from each other, it just doesn't work. It's a car full of smart people. And another thing I admire about the Raven cycle is how it focuses on the fact that all of them are smart. Gansey is naturally academically gifted, but he's also smart in the choices he makes within friends. And then Adam is, you know, he works very hard to be smart in school. He has to put in all that work, but he is smart because he can handle it. And also he's logical. He figures out problems in real life and has ideas. That's a different kind of smart. And then Ronan, he's so not into the school life. He's so not into academics, but he's really good at Latin. And Maggie Stiefvater makes it clear that you don't have to be academically gifted to be smart. Blue is also smart. She deals and navigates amongst all these Raven boys. That takes a lot, and ask her anything about the environment and she probably knows the answer. So I admire this depiction of the different kinds of smart that you can be and the different levels of smart that you can be as well. But sometimes Blue frustrates me. For example, they come across Henry Cheng. Now first of all, I will never forgive Maggie Stiefvater for the way that Henry Cheng got integrated into the gang, because he was integrated in the very, very last book, and he was integrated on the way in as Noah was on his way out. So therefore nobody like loves him as much because A, it's only the last book, and B, he's kind of a Noah replacement and it comes across as a Noah replacement, whereas if the insertion of Henry like really started within the third book maybe, it would feel a bit more natural, especially if there was some overlap with times when Noah was there with him and stuff. I don't know. I feel like the integration of Henry Cheng could have been done better because he is actually a great character, and it was obvious that he was going to become one of the Gansey, one of the gang as soon as he was introduced, because of the fact that A, Ronan is jealous of him, B, Blue first of all has an opinion of him, her bias working, oh he's just like all the rest, and then he doesn't, you know, say anything when he sees Orphan Girl in the boot of the car, and then they're all like, huh, maybe there's hidden depths to Henry that we hadn't assumed beforehand. And then because Blue has that thought, which she had with every single one of the Raven boys before she got to know them, you can know that he's going to be integrated. Gansey loves him, and yeah. He's described as having unforgettable hair, and truthfully I did not remember this detail, I forgot it, but fanfic made sure I didn't forget it, because it always goes on about it. And last but not least, we have Adam laughing at Ronan's joke in the car, even though he tries not to. My ship. My ship. Okay, let's read the next 50 pages. Okay, some more reading has been done. I'm sorry if I'm bouncing a little bit. I'm on my bed, so it's bouncy. And now we're a quarter of the way through, and first of all, Orphan Girl has been dragged into reality now. She's been dragged out of Ronan's dreams, and I appreciate the fact that Adam is the one who decides where they're gonna go. He's like, let's go to Caveswater, and they all just kind of always accept Adam's decisions for things, which I think is completely valid, but sometimes I feel like he could be questioned a bit more. And Adam has this internal monologue because he realizes that his first thought when he saw Orphan Girl was, if she was a nightmare, he could kill her and that would be like done with it rather than all of this trouble. And immediately after he has this thought, he starts his self-loathing of like, oh, I'm like my father and all of that jazz. And it just makes me so sad to see Adam doing that, because he consistently does it even after all this time. And I think someone just needs to go to Adam and tell him that you don't have control of your thoughts. Negative thoughts, stray thoughts, errant thoughts, they just happen, and it's only your reaction to those thoughts and your actions after those thoughts that really matters and is what really counts. And he doesn't seem to realize that, and he just hates himself so completely for having these thoughts in the first place, and it makes me sad. The Caveswater descriptions are so lush and so real and so magical. I just miss being in Caveswater so much, and reading that reminded me why I love Caveswater as a setting so very much. No magical forest compares, and I mean no magical forest, past, present or future. Also, hearing Adam talk about how much he truly loves Caveswater and how much he truly loves being connected to Caveswater, and knowing the fact that after this book he no longer has that connection, makes me so sad, because it's describing how few things that he truly, wholly, completely loves, and then knowing that this is another one that is going to be taken away from him. There's also a moment where Blue is looking at Gansey, and Adam describes the look that she's giving Gansey as hungry, and he wonders, has Blue ever been that hungry for me? And what I really like about that moment is how Stivata later on takes that same word, hungry, and uses it to describe how Adam feels for Ronan, and it's just like, wait for it, you don't have that feeling yet, but you're going to get there. And even as they're walking their way into Caveswater, you see Adam kind of low-key flirting with Ronan by playing his music through the trees, and it was so sweet. But it was also sweet because Gansey and Blue were literally doing the same thing, and then you see Adam and Ronan doing it too, and it's like, these couples, they are forming, and it's sweet and it's exciting, but they're still friends at the core of it. Seeing Caveswater be a character as much as anything else and wanting them all to be happy, I love a sentient forest. Now Aurora is already in the forest and already in and awake in Caveswater. I don't remember exactly when they discover that she can be okay in Caveswater. Maybe it's the book before this, or the one, maybe even the Dream Thieves. I have no idea when that happens. I'll figure it out, but she's there, and I just have to say Aurora is like a living angel. Of course, she is too good to be true, hence why she is also a dream thing, but I love the descriptions of Aurora and just how much of a perfect mother that she is. Also to all of Ronan's friends, to all of those boys as well, and Blue. There's also the small moment where Orphan Girl is kind of zoning out and not reacting to anyone, but Adam gives Orphan Girl his watch and she immediately starts playing with it. And I'm just saying, all of Ronan's dream things love Adam because Ronan loves Adam. Also, Gansey has a moment where he's thinking like, is this the way I want to spend my last few days of my life? You know, not being able to love the person I love because I'm being a coward about it. And it just strikes me how much Gansey is brave in this book, because he's doing all of these things knowing that at some point it's likely going to lead to his death, and you just have to admire his bravery throughout this whole book. And then we have a nightmare that happens which has to do with 3 blues with red hands in Caveswater, and when I originally read the book I had no idea what was going on, but now I see, because Adam says, hey, that's my nightmare, it's like Blue has killed Gansey, I'm guessing, and that's why her hands are red, because Blue is supposed to kill the person she kisses, etc, etc. So I feel like you can read that into it, but otherwise I still, like, if that's not the correct interpretation, I don't understand that nightmare come to life. There's also a lovely chapter with the woman in Foxway being in the bath and talking about Blue's future with her, and it was just so like gezellig, but you know, English, heartwarming. It was so heartwarming, and I love that scene just because I really do like the woman in Foxway. They're their own kind of gang, and they all just so clearly love Blue and want what's best for her, and know that sometimes parenting is letting go of people as well. And it was so nice to see that reflected again, as I've already mentioned in this video. Seeing the parents' interactions with this story is just so good. They give their kids independence, but they also give their kids guidance as well. The chapter with the Lormonias, who, well, one of them is Piper's father, and I have no memory of them whatsoever. I don't know what their role is in this book. I can't remember them being part of the plot. I was surprised at their chapter, so I think that's going to be interesting to see where that goes. Then we go to a nighttime, and all of them have insomnia for either which way reason. All of those 3 main boys that I'm usually talking about in this video, and I quite like to see all of these different issues with sleeplessness. As someone who is sleepless myself more often than not, it's nice to just see that represented. We've got Gansey with his anxiety, and I completely forgot the scene where he goes swimming at night and it kind of calms his soul. That was beautiful. Then we've got Ronan, who's afraid of nightmares, and his dream things coming out of his dream entirely valid, and therefore he doesn't always sleep well. And then last last but not least, we've got Adam, who would probably sleep well if he could sleep, but he's got so much to do that he just never gets enough sleep. And I have to say, I'm all three of those combined. We also see Adam have a moment where his hands don't belong to him anymore and they start moving on their own. And Ronan also has a moment where he has a nightmare where everything is being unmade in his dream. And I know those two things come back around later, so it's a bit of foreshadowing, a bit of a creepy moment. Things are starting to happen. In that dream that Ronan had, he mentions this mask, and the mask is kind of the source of the unmaking. And I feel like there was a mask in one of the books that he dreamed up and he just kept in his room and he wanted it away from everyone. And I felt like that storyline went nowhere. Right now it's only in the dream, and I don't know if that mask, you know, manifests in real life in this book or in another book, but I'll be curious to see if this mask actually amounts to anything, or maybe it's a metaphor for something. I don't know, but I remember being very intrigued about this mask when I first read the story and then first read the series, and then seeing that it didn't really amount to what I wanted it to amount to. Raven Day happened at the school. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it. And it's the first time that Adam and Gansey realise that Raven Day relates to Noah, and Adele, who is Noah's sister, turns up. And I think the sisters come back in a bit later, something to do with Noah being laid to rest and one of the rites of passage that has to happen before that can happen. But it was like a nice image of all these like raven things happening at the school. You know, ravens, they're kind of a key buzzword for this whole series. Gansey starts to have a bit of a panic attack in the middle of all of this Raven Day jazz going on, and Henry kind of swoops in and rescues him and helps him through this panic attack, which is again a nice moment that they both have. I feel like, as we know, Gansey usually adopts a friend first and then everybody else just has to get on board later on, or happens to get on board later on, and you can definitely see that happening with him and Henry here. And then Henry invites him to a toga party. I'm very familiar with Henry and toga parties because of fan fiction, but I forgot that's actually something that happens in the book itself. I don't know how she has time to put all of this into the last book, but she does, and she's doing it. So I've read a bit more, and Adam just had a moment in the bathroom where his like eye was drooping and the darkness was encroaching into the bathroom. And again, the darkness is just a living thing. We can see it, I don't know, manifesting and attacking all of them. And I don't know what's going on with like eyes, hands, and there's something else like seen. There's always like the darkness has seen them, the darkness is controlling their eyes, the darkness is controlling their hands, and that might have to do with things that you can see and things that you can do. But I don't know if I'm reading too much into it because I can't exactly remember what it was that was attacking them at the end. I can't exactly remember what it all accumulates to, so I don't know if sight and hands really have something to do with it or not, but that is the imagery that is definitely being pushed here. And as well as that, I think I've noticed what I really like about Stiefvater's writing style is her habit of casually personifying absolutely everything. For example, when Adam and Blue are in Nino's, there's just one line which is like, the wind was chucking leaves at the window, and it's like, you just personified the wind for no reason. It moves on after that line. But I do like when things are personified in poetry, in books, and she just casually keeps on doing that in her writing style. And I think that's one of the things that A, makes it so purple, but B, also just makes it so enjoyable to read. And Adam and Blue have their conversation in Nino's. I was happy to finally get to Nino's because even though I hate pizza, you know, it's just one of the iconic settings that are just so pivotal to the Raven Cycle series. It's where it all begins because that's where Blue and the boys meet for the first time. And Adam confesses the fact that she understands that Gansey and Blue have a relationship, and it gets into an argument, and I think they're both making very good points. Adam about the fact that Blue is meant to kiss her true love and then he dies apparently, but also about them having hid the relationship while he's right obviously there and can see everything. Did they really think that was going to work? But at the same time, in the third book, when they decide to keep it a secret from him, Adam is going through so much stuff and is actually so unlike himself as he's overloaded with everything else. I would not want to tell him then either, so I think they both have very good points, but it kind of accumulated to nothing because they just argued. You also get the Foxway origin story where you get to see how all of the women of Foxway met, and it's just absolutely beautiful and lovely. And then we have a scene with Moore and the Grey Man, which was quietly romantic, but also they were actually doing something and working together. And I like that scene because, I don't know, the grey man is literally grey. Like, he's a grey moral character and it's in his name, and I love when Stiefvater does it, even if sometimes it hurts, like Persephone being called Persephone. You know, we knew she was going to die. Her name is literally the wife of death. But it was a time. It was nice to see Mora and Grey working together, and a few scenes later it moves to like Gansey and Blue at the toga party together, and then like Adam and Ronan doing something together, and you can just see all these pairs of psychic and non-psychic working together or doing something together, and it's adorable. Also, I found it interesting how in the car with Mora, the Grey man calls the group, the Gansey, Adam and the Merry Men, as if Adam is the leader, and then Mora is like, no, it's Gansey and the Merry Men, because Gansey is the leader. And I think that's a very interesting take that the Grey Man has, because Adam does do a lot of the decision making, but his personality is not enough to carry the motivations of a group. He's kind of the character that is actually the leader of the group, but would take a step back and let somebody be the, you know, symbol of the leader or the actual leader that everybody meets, because they want to lead quietly and guide the group but don't want to have their head place. But I would still think, you know, it's equally valid to see Gansey as a leader. He definitely groups them all together and finds them. So I see where the Grey Man is coming from, but it's still the Gansey, with Gansey at the very top. Mora finds Noah as a ghost, and it's clearly seen that Noah himself is being possessed. Noah himself is growing weaker. We've definitely seen this over the course of the beginning of the novel, and it's just emphasised all the more now. But when Calla touches him, she's like, you can stay for as long as you want. So we understand that in the future he's going to have a key role, more foreshadowing of this. But I feel like when it comes to Noah, it's just not foreshadowing, it's just too obvious to be foreshadowing. I know that later on, Gansey and Adam have a moment, and Gansey describes Blue as the person who makes him quiet and peaceful, but for now Gansey compares Blue to the moments he feels when he's swimming at night, which again is quiet and peaceful. And the way that he describes Blue as the antidote to his anxiety is just beautiful to me. I'm not a huge Gansey and Blue shipper, not as in I don't ship them together, but as in something about their relationship always makes me feel like mum and dad. Maybe it's because I ship Pinch so much and Ronan's always calling Gansey dad, that when I think of their relationship I'm like, this is such a parental kind of relationship and there's not much to ship, it's just a given that I can't ship it. But it was a sweet moment. Ronan and Adam's scene where Adam's like scrying through headlights and also scrying while in the car, and Ronan is spotting him, and at one moment Ronan's just looking at Adam and describing his features, especially his hands, because it's Ronan, and he sounds so worshipful. I literally melt. And at that scene they're talking about how they both know that the other person fancies them. Well, Ronan doesn't know that Adam fancies him, but they both know that Ronan fancies him. And I'm like, what are you waiting for? But I guess Adam's still trying to figure things out. And then Adam's crying and he accidentally takes them back to the trailer where Robert Parrish is. And I think in that moment you can just see how much Adam has grown from the whole situation, because he feels so distant and separate from it. And I like what it was said about, even though the court case didn't exactly go his way, Robert Parrish didn't have to do any time, he still feels incredibly validated that somebody said, hey, this was a thing that he did and it was wrong. And I think sometimes that's what people need, just to know that what they're facing is not right, and what they're facing is not normal, it's not justified, and that can change things so much. Like the idea that you don't deserve the suffering that you're going through, or the idea that what you're going through is suffering, it's not the standard, that can really change people. And I think it's only a paragraph, but I like that that's included. Adam comes so close to making the Ronan and Caveswater connection, that Caveswater comes from Ronan, but he kind of misses it over his scrying period time, and I'm just like, I forgot that that was such a big reveal. I thought that by now in the series they already knew that Ronan and Caveswater were connected and that Caveswater came from Ronan, but apparently they still don't, and that's gonna be like a big shocking moment at the end of the series. I'm surprised it took them that long. 6:21, that time keeps cropping up, like it was 6:21, it was 6:21. No, hang on, it's not 6:21. And I quite like that. It's quite atmospheric, it's building up the suspense and tension in a small way, but at the same time I can't remember what this amounts to. You'd think that I remember the end of the series, but I remember the key things that happen, as in not everybody dies who should die, for example. But I don't really remember where they're going with this whole darkness thing. And the toga party sounded wonderful. It just sounded like a place where some characters could be unashamedly themselves, and it was a very cute moment between Blue and Gansey. And then we switch back to Caveswater, where Adam finally figures out that Ronan manifested Caveswater, and I was like, finally, he put the pieces together. Of course it was Adam. And he also freaks out because he's like, Caveswater is Ronan, which definitely has a lot of implications for him and how close he's grown to Caveswater. And Ronan gets frustrated by Adam's reaction, which, you know, it's fair that Adam needs time, but also I feel like Ronan's reading into it how Adam doesn't want Ronan to know him that well. So they both got some frustrations over their discovery, but now it's finally been discovered. I thought it was going to be right at the end of the book, and I was like, oh my gosh, really? But no, it happens halfway through. And then Opal kind of gets trapped in Caveswater and Adam frees them, but then at the same time Blue and Gansey go back to Foxway, and Noah is being possessed by this giant hornet demon that we know is called Unmaker now, and he's being possessed by it, and it kind of tries to take out Blue's eye. Again, the eye imagery, it's coming back, but at the same time, you know, scratch the idea I had about the imagery with the three blues with the red hands and stuff, because apparently that's what Blue looks like after the whole ordeal, and it's just so sad to see Noah being used and possessed like that again and again. He's really fractured and fragmented and not Noah at all in this final book, which makes me sad to see. And Gansey is definitely getting a grip on his whole magical commanding power, because he's using it quite a bit in this book, which is interesting to see. I have to admit, this book is a lot more darker and creepier than I originally remember it being, because, you know, last time I must have been here for the characters and the characters only, because all of the concrete plot points of this last book I don't really remember. As soon as I read them, I'm like, oh yeah, this is familiar, I know that this happened. But until I get to that point, I'm like, actually, I don't remember this scene at all. But when I get to any character development point, I'm like, yeah, of course, I remember that happened. So the first time I read this series, I was focusing on the characters so much. But there is a semblance of plot there for plot readers, but I definitely would still be with the idea that the characters are definitely what you're going in for when you're reading the Raven cycle. And then it switched to Piper murdering her husband, and I love Piper. I remember her being one of my favourite villains in the series. You've got quite a few villainous characters, and Piper was by far and large my favourite. I think she's sassy, she's independent, and she's just so unique. She comes with so much personality that it's fantastic to see. But you see that she's with the demon and working with the demon, who is a hornet, of course, because of Gansey. And then we've also got Neve there, and I now remember that Neve was in the picture, but Neve annoyed me in the book 1. I didn't like Neve in book 1, and I still don't like Neve now, and now she's here and she's just kind of like a hanger-on to Piper, and it's bothering me every time I have to read her name, but she exists, so I have to face it. And then we have a chapter from Declan's point of view, and that is the first time we get a chapter from Declan's point of view in this book, and I'm not sure if we get points of views of him in other books. I don't think so. I can't see why it would be necessary, but I see why it's necessary in this book. And I was one of the people who liked Declan from this series. I know a lot of people didn't like Declan from the Raven cycle, and I understand why, especially in the earlier books, but I know that I loved him before Cool Down the Hawk, and I still love him a lot more than I used to, but I did love him back here. And if this is the only chapter we ever get from Declan's point of view, can't say if it is or not, I understand why I love him, because in that singular chapter you understand so much about his character, how much he loves his brothers, how much he is definitely a product of being Niall Lynch's son and the one who is entrusted in the family business and had to take it over after his murder. All of that is encompassed into who he is and how he behaves. You can just see it in every thread of his life. He's trying to have a normal life, but he's aware that he never quite can because of the siblings that he has, and also because of the business that his dad was in. And it's so heartbreaking to see how much that has shaped his personality, but also you've got to admire the guy's resilience. So I think that is why I love Declan Lynch. And then last but not least, we have all of the scenes with Henry where they go down into a hole and he has a like heart-to-heart with Gansey, and basically what Henry is doing is just throwing all of his secrets and everything that he knows at Gansey, and then letting Gansey decide, hey, you can join my gang, hey, you can be a friend of mine or not. And you know, I kind kind of love Henry just for that reason, because it's really something. It takes a lot of trust, it takes a lot of honesty and earnestness, and also a lot of vulnerability to be like, this is everything I am, these are my past traumatic experiences, these are my secrets, this is how I am, and I understand you to an extent. Like, he's the one who's the most Gansey-like, and he understands Gansey, but he also doesn't know enough about Gansey to know exactly what he's getting into. He's just throwing himself in the dark there because he needs more friends that he can fully confide in, and he knows that Gansey's gang could be that for him. And I don't know, it takes so much bravery. It takes more than I would ever have, you know, to just pitch yourself to someone as, please be my friend, I need a friend and you are the perfect kind. And it also breaks my heart that he has to do that because that's the only way he can get in there. I don't know, I love Henry. I don't see enough people who love Henry. If you love Henry, let me know in the comment section down below. Because actually that's all I have to say about the first half of The Raven King. I'm very aware that this video is a bit messy. It's just me spitballing my thoughts out there, and I hope you enjoy it. Please let me know in the comment section down below. What is your favourite setting in the Raven cycle? Do you like Nino's the most? Do you like Monmouth? Do you like Foxway? Caveswater? Let me know, what is your favourite place. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, it fits for once. Onwards and upwards. Excelsior!